The broadcast is live. This is Coach Arnie with the Health, Love, and Life Show on the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and Podcast. And I forgot to say Health, Love, and Life's Adventure Show because especially in the last few weeks, we've been doing a lot of talk about the Grand Canyon and other good things, and there's going to be a lot more coming up on that as well. And just follow me at, there's my email and epicadventure.info or epicadventure@info.com is the best place to get a hold of me. Tonight we are, it's my pleasure to have a wonderful person I've just recently met. We met on a clubhouse with a mutual friend, and it was kind of an interesting topic. I don't know about going too far down that rabbit hole, but we met, and I met him through some other podcast that he was on. So, and I had interviewed him as well on this show. And so Eva and I were talking on his show, and I found out that she was a relationship expert, and obviously that's one of my areas that I love to talk about. And she seemed super knowledgeable, and I thought, well, let's get on the show and do a podcast about relationships. And then I said, what would you like to talk about? And here she goes. She wants to talk about men. But, a lot of times when I work with women, the idea is I can share with them about what's inside of here. And on the other side of it, too, when you talk to men or women, you can share with them about what's going on in their brain, which is an interesting topic as well. So this is a good topic. And because as a man, one of the things that I've noticed, Eva, is that there is so much confusion out there with men. I mean, you and I talked about this a little bit. I was just on one of my men's groups in Facebook. I can't even spend very much time there because I want to jump through the screen and get in there and just start screaming at people because it's annoying. The question, and I don't want to be judgmental, but the questions are so sad. And a lot of it, to me as a guy who's done a lot of work with men, is just really bad mentorship. And it starts in the home. I didn't have good mentorship when I was a young man, over 50 years ago. And it finally came to fruition for me with a good friend of mine, who's still a client of mine. He said, Arn, your dad did as good as he knew how. Because my dad was never home either. He was a great guy, very likable guy. He had a big family. So he was kind of raised by brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, and he was spoiled rotten. So he knew nothing about being a dad. Zero. He didn't know how to be a dad. And so I'm curious as to, and then we'll circle back to some other things. I got some questions for you, but I want to get people started on what you have to offer, because I think you have a lot. So where are you at with the whole men's tribe question or topic, and how did you get there? So how did you get to being an expert and being confident enough to talk about men's tribes?
You want to see all my frogs on the mantle? None of them turned into a prince,
Yeah.
but they were my best teachers. No, seriously. I used to, I am an image consultant by training.
Image.
And I worked with many people, special men, executive men, and in companies. And it was very interesting because after you put them together, such as image, how they look, the outside, I found that the inside doesn't match. Or they were asking me about how to be on a date, what to talk about, how to behave, because many things changed, and I'm sure that you know about it. The women's liberation and the feminism, which was a good idea at that point. And I think being able to work, having daycare for kids, having same wages, being able to, to get to a certain point in life. But till it was an ideal and till it was something that it was necessary, when politics came in and stepped in, I find that what happened there created a division between women. And that's what was going on around the world at this point. So some of the women, they did not like women who stay home with the kids. The other women, it was always a conflict. So, and if you know, I don't have to tell you that the family structure broke up. Mm-hmm. More than 50% of marriages end up in divorce. Yeah. And it's not unusual to have men having and women having 2-3 kids from different partners. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So those men are totally absent in those children's life. And how we want that boy, when it grows up, to know how to be a father, how to be a husband. And also it's important for the girls, because the girls, they want to know how to be treated. And there is such a disproportion in what the family usual was and what is now, that I'm looking at women. They have women's gym, women's club. Men used to have their club. But women, they felt with the feminism, no, we have to be in that club. Mm-hmm. So men, they don't have a place where to go and vent, where to go to build that testosterone up and talk about issues that it's only manly. But women, they have their tribe, but not as much as men. And where women got at this point, they want men to do everything, to be their girlfriends. I mean, not girlfriends, but friends, their lovers, their everything. And guess what they are thinking? And it's impossible. If for one person to satisfy another person, it's impossible. And most of the problems I found, special with couples, I like couples too, it's communication. Mm. They don't know how to communicate. And I took a course with a coach, JT Fox, and he brought up.
Oh yeah, I know. I went to a couple of his seminars. Absolutely.
Yeah. So he brought something up, and for me, I was doing it instinctively, and it just clicked. Right brain, left brain, and I had a couple, and I did a test. The man was very right brain, and left brain, and I was asking, so what is 2 + 2? But of course it's 4. He's an engineer, and I asked the wife. I said, what is 2 + 2? But separately. She says, oh, it's 4, but if you add a 0, it's 40. But if you have this, so she went into all these details. And the problem was that he wanted the facts right then. And she wanted, oh, can you listen to me? This is what happened, and tell all the story. And he was impatient. I'm wasting my time. So it's very interesting how people connect and how communicate. And I think everything is in communication. When I was doing the image consulting, one of the things in the companies, it was communication. Mm-hmm. And the misunderstanding of each other, and things didn't work out. So I think it's so important to know how to communicate.
No, I agree. It reminds me a little. 2 things happened this weekend. I went to the Grand Canyon, and I took a 30-year-old. He's actually doing some work with me in marketing. And one of the things that we trained. He got interested in it. 7 months ago. So he goes, I want to do that. I said, okay. And I thought it was a great idea because it would give him a bird's eye view of what we're actually marketing, And he worked really hard, and he had a girlfriend that was living with him, and they'd known each other since high school, 12 years. And then I noticed something in the last few weeks that he was advertising for a roommate. And because we had talked a couple months ago about, he was struggling a little bit. Who doesn't? He's dating and living with somebody and blah, blah, blah. And so and I kind of left it alone. But we got somewhere around the bottom of the Grand Canyon somewhere. And I said, so did you and your girlfriend split up? He goes, yeah. She finally moved out a few weeks ago. I said, okay. And how are you feeling about that? He goes, I'm fine. We've known each other since high school. But this guy has had a lot of mindset work, Eva. So he made a tough choice in his life. No dad. And, but he made a tough choice. Time will tell whether it's a good choice. But you know what? In my world, if in a relationship, if it's not working and you don't want to work at it, then leave. Mm-hmm. Move on. And especially if there's no children and you're not married, instead of living together, move on. And then compare that to another 30-year-old I'm working with who has a disability, sharp, works for Blue Cross and Blue Shield. He has a girlfriend that has some issues herself, not physical or anything, but has a very controlling family. And I told him today, I said, listen, your girlfriend is waiting for you to step up because every time you step up to her, she backs down. But every time you allow her to control you and your schedule, she takes full advantage of it. And at some point, she's going to get sick of pushing you around, and she's going to go out there and look for somebody that's strong and will stand up to her. Because she has a weak father and a very, very overbearing mother. See what's going on here? Her model is a mom that pushes around her husband. So what does she want to do to this guy? She wants to push him around. But every time he stands up to her, she backs down. And I told him today, I said, you need to stop that. Because she's going to leave at some point when she's done playing with you. And she's going to find somebody that will stand up to her. And but men don't, and this guy has a good dad, but he has a very strong mom too. A very strong mom, because I've known him since he was a young man, very young. And but this is the state of the affair for men right now, Eva. They are so confused. They don't know what to do. They don't know, well, if I stand up to her, is she going to think I'm being, overbearing or mean or violent, right? Or at the other side of it, if shouldn't I just give in and say yes, ma'am, and no, just give in to everything she wants, or she's going to leave me because I don't want to be loved, I don't want to be alone, and blah blah blah, right? I mean, this is what I'm seeing. I see this real confusion. Is this what you're seeing as well?
It's real confusion, definitely. Women don't know what they want, and it's proven that they got to a certain place in life, some of them, that they're doing really well in business. Or
very well.
They are not happy, still not happy. Mm-hmm. And they are the men, and they don't know where they stand because men are the hunters, men are the supporters. But now the woman, it's like, no, I want to say a word. They are castrated, some of them, in a way, because nothing is good enough. You cannot please them. If they stand up, why are you mean? If you stay and you listen, you are a pushover.
Yep.
And I had met quite a few people, and even I had a boss once, long time ago, and his wife called him a pushover. He was a super, super nice person. Even now, after, 30 years, I'm still calling him for his birthday and Christmas. But it's one of those things that they don't know where they stand. It's like the woman wants to be the man, and it's like I had this client says, I opened the door for the woman to go in the restaurant, and she was, no, I can open it for myself. I don't need your help. I mean, you know what? If I'm a woman, please carry that hammer and take that nail and do it. I can do it too, but I don't want to.
Mhm.
Like I find that where women praise their men, and the women, they use their men when it's needed in the right way, not using them, but for the skills they have, those men are happier, those marriages are much happier,
Mhm.
and men don't feel the need to go to find somebody else, because they are pleased, they feel complete, they feel confident.
They have roles, and
Yeah,
they're
they
and
have a
they
purpose.
and they're appreciated. They're
Yeah.
appreciated because let's say that you marry somebody who is a carpenter,
Hmm.
a man who's a carpenter, but at the same time, he can come home and turn that off, and he can be loving, and
Hmm.
he can listen to his wife. These are skills he can learn. He can learn them if he wants. Men can learn to be good listeners if they have to, right?
Yes.
And but at the same time, because he has the role and the skills of fixing things, he can take care of the nest and make his wife feel safe, that she doesn't have to do that. And this is tough because this is my issue that I've had, because my dad was a carpenter and a mechanic. He could build a whole house by himself, but he never took the time to show me how to do any of that. Get it? So I've had to learn whatever I've learned through the years with friends and stuff like that. But at the same time, I learned the other things, or tried to, the softer skills, the listening skills, the other types of skills that I try to do, and then try to do the other things and hire people to do the things to make people feel safe. The problem that I'm seeing here is that, one, as I think you said it earlier, when the man doesn't feel appreciated by the woman because he's not enough. He doesn't. To me, the number one fear in the world, one of the top two, is I'm not good enough. And so I hear it all the time from men. No matter what I do, it's not enough. And
Hmm.
then there's that fear that if I'm not making enough money, working hard enough, keeping her happy, and then he's confused because he maybe doesn't have the listening skills and the things that she wants, like you shared earlier about the 40 or the 4. Most guys will think, what are you talking about? And make her feel, well, wait a minute, you're supposed to be listening to me, right? Quit trying to analyze me. But most guys don't get that. So they don't, because they're not going to read books that they need to read, right?
Yeah.
So they feel like if they're not good enough, they're not doing all these things, and she's not happy, then they're going to lose her, and he's not going to be loved because he's not going to find anybody, and then this vicious cycle goes on, and then he's in this kind of like, then he gets quiet, because men get quiet, right?
Yeah.
Quiet. Or they get really angry. They get really angry, or they get really quiet. And so you have this real crazy dynamic going on in these relationships, as you said. And then, at some point it gets into what I call repression, where they're just kind of living together, and then they get divorced, right?
Yeah. And so what is interesting, I have been listening and I was looking at some of the titles on Clubhouse, and my skin crawls when they're calling toxic masculinity or
Oh,
something.
I
And it's
hate
like,
that term.
I know,
I
it's,
hate it.
what do you mean? Why
Hate
you
it.
have to call somebody toxic? And then
For
I'm
being a
victim.
man.
Yeah. And I'm a victim. And the victim. And I know that I have been talking to women, and they were saying, oh yeah, he did that to me and that to me. And, like they remember everything for, I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know, 12 years ago. And I'm like, what was your part in that? Because I am a victim. Did you allow it? Because if you allow it, you cannot condemn the other person. If you did not put very solid boundaries and your values did not match, why you want to make the other person always at fault? It's a different issue if the person is like, and there are quite a few narcissists and whatever,
Oh sure.
or like psychopaths. But
Mm.
I'm talking in in a normal kind of relationship, and that always I feel like, do the job, find who you are. Don't get into a relationship until you know who you are, until you know what you want, until you know what are the patterns that you had previously, and take all your relationships and see what are the commonalities. Maybe you don't want to repeat it, or what you took from your childhood, you don't want to repeat that. And we all say we don't want to be like our parents, but we learn from our
We
parents.
end up being just like them.
Yeah.
Hold that thought, Eva. Hold that thought on our parents. We're going to come right back. We're going to take a quick little break here, okay? Hold that thought. All right, we are back. So where we were, Eva, was we were talking about parents, and you triggered a thought in my head, because as a man, one of the things that I have 3 daughters, and amazing young ladies. They're all different. They're all tough, but they all can be very emotional as well, because they're women. And I took it very seriously that, and it was not easy to set a standard in my home that I wanted to present somebody that was not always perfect, but was committed, honest, hardworking, and a man, doing, what you would consider manly stuff. I played a lot of sports, but at the same time, I wasn't out in 5 different softball leagues. I was home. I got up early in the morning and did my stuff, but I was home. and during the critical times. It wasn't always easy, but I wanted them to at least have an idea of what to look for in a man. And I know they had a grandfather that was also a good example too. It's just that he didn't live long enough, I think, to give them a good role model. But I wanted to at least present that to them, because women look to their dads or to the strong men in their life as somebody that they can relate to in their relationships, because they have to. You're not going to get it from TV, because I did a radio show, and I believe you and I talked about this. I did a radio show 3 years ago, and it was all about men. And one of the topics we talked about was that how in the last now 60 years, you can count on one hand, Eva, the strong men that you see on TV and the movies. I mean, strong men that were, not just a strong man, but had like 10 different girlfriends and had a drinking problem. I'm talking about strong men that were balanced. They had that ability to be soft and genuine, like a John Wayne, but at the same time could get on his horse and get out there and get the guy that stole the horse. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's just rare. We don't see that anymore. So where they're getting their models for their boyfriends and potential husbands, it's kind of scary if you think about it. What are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree with you. It's, I think Hollywood, it totally fantasized and created an image that it's not real. It's not real. It's like, I don't know if you know that line, you complete me. What do you mean you complete me? If you are not whole by yourself, how can somebody complete you? You have so certain words and the expectations to be like that, it's totally impossible.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the blame and the insecurity and the need. I have to have someone. When you come from a point of view of need, it's not going to work. Because if you want someone and you are totally okay by yourself, and two people come together who worked on themselves, then you can see a different kind of relationship and not the clingy one. You have friends, the other person have friends. It's one of the things that I'm saying to my clients. Make sure that you look if they have friends. Because if not, it's going to be a problem.
I like
when you get and meet the friends, or listen how he talks or she talks about the friends, because then you're going to know what is going on, how they talk about their parents, and then you can find out if it's going to be okay with you, if it's not going to bring too many baggage, if you can live with whatever he has or she has. So you cannot just say that, okay, let's get together. And that's why it's good not to get too intimate in the beginning. So you know each other. So you have a point that, are our values the same? Are our goals the same? If it's not, see if you can bring it together, or if you can, or how can you work with that? But if your values are not the same and you don't have boundaries, people can step all over you. It's not going to work.
Well, you brought up so many good points there. And I would love to know your thoughts on this. Dating. It's completely been thrown overboard, I think, and maybe not by our generation, but certainly by the younger folks. Because, in my day, I grew up in Phoenix was known as the biggest small town in America because we just knew everybody. Mm-hmm. And you either dated somebody from your high school or a high school that was a mile down the road, and you got to know them at a party or something and you saw them. And so then you dated, and then you get to know somebody, and then you get to know their families and their values, and do they go to church, or what kind of church do they go to, or do they, how does the mom and dad treat each other? How do they treat you just learn things, and you date, and then you can talk about, what are your goals? Well, I want to have kids. Oh, I don't want to have kids. Well, where do you want your kids to go to school? Oh, I want them to be in a private, or what I'm saying? You talk about these things, and and I'm sure you have too, but I've run into these couples, they're 2 years into a marriage, and all of a sudden they have a little baby, and they're arguing about how they're going to raise the kid. I'm thinking, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe this should have been discussed about 4 or 5 years ago, And now, granted, sometimes it just happens, but that's just one aspect of it. It could be other things too. It could be, the in-laws and how they're treated, and maybe that should have been discussed. Religion is a big one. Maybe that should be discussed. A little travel. My brother is a tough nut, and he got married about a year after I got married. This is like 34 years ago, and he married a young lady here that he had met in the valley here, and he had been in the military, and then he was a police officer for a year, but it was an interim job, because he wanted to work for the Secret Service, but he actually ended up working for the DEA. And he told her, he's very clear. My brother's very direct. He's very politely direct. And he said, there's going to be travel. My job is going to demand that I travel. And I'm not sure where I'm going to end up, but I'm going to be traveling a lot until I get established. Very clear. So he ended up being moved to Fort Bliss, which means he was going to be living in Texas, El Paso. Okay, El Paso, Texas. Okay. And within a month, his wife was complaining because she was going to be separated from her mom. So my brother didn't waste any time. He bought a beautiful new home, furniture, the whole thing. And he said, you know what? He went and talked to his lawyer. He started the annulment procedure. He said, there's your house. I'll see you later. I'm out of here. And it was done as fast as possible, because he knew that the longer he hung in there with that, she was not going to change. You don't change people. They do. They can change. And he realized that as a young man, 27 years old, 28 years old, he realized. And then he met somebody a couple years later, and they've been married, and they have 3 wonderful, amazing kids. They've done it. I always call them my all-star parents. They make me look silly. Okay. But that wouldn't have happened, Eva, if he didn't make that fast decision like that. My friend Kevin this weekend that took the Grand Canyon, he did a fast decision like that. But too many people, once they try to make the other person change, and you don't change your values or you change if you want to. Maybe I'm trying to say. So is that kind of how do you feel about the whole dating thing? What are your thoughts?
Well, the dating thing, I have clients, and that client is for my image consulting. I'm still doing that, shop for him and everything.
Sure.
He says he's going on a date, and the lady is swearing. Says he wants to pick her up, and she says no. I understand in a way where she stands, because sure. If you don't know someone, but I have so many horror stories about dating, and it's like they sit down and they talk about like, oh my God, what happened with the past girlfriend, boyfriend, or it's it's they don't know how to talk, how to communicate. And I was just thinking of something you were talking about your brother and about you. I don't know. I mean, you are around my age. Yeah. In those times, we did not have internet. We didn't have anything. You remember, I used to get together with my neighborhood kids, and there was a little boy in my neighborhood, and we played house. So we had that doll. We had, you go to work, you come home and pretend. And so it was basically preparation for
Sure
the future. And nobody said you play with the doll and now you are a girl. No. So it was a very interesting experience. And I'm thinking that is missing, because that moment when we were playing that, we were imitating the parents. Okay,
Yes.
dad is coming
Yes.
home. And so it prepared us for what we wanted. And I think that is missing. The education is missing. I mean, history, geography, even anyway, history is a lot of lie. You can learn by yourself.
Mhm.
Learn how to read, learn how to add up numbers so you can count your money. But the basics, how to manage your money, and some of the basics that they are very important, even sexual education.
Mhm.
Kids as young as 7, 9, 10 years old are addicted to porn.
It's sad.
What else is there? They are
It's
the incels.
incredibly sad.
So that's why I'm saying that something has to give, something has to happen. If not, the future generation is going to be in big trouble.
You're exactly right, and that's where I'm trying to do whatever I can do as a coach, as a men's, I guess men's. I like to look at experts and specialists as people that are willing to continue to grow and learn, so that we can talk. I mean, when I go to the gym in the morning, I have a boot camp in the morning, and there's tons of young men, seniors, and young college athletes, and a couple young in their professionals in their early 20s, and I love interacting with them and teasing them and getting them to share, and because they're not used to doing that with men, and I think all I'm trying to do is to say, hey, look, it's okay if you have a question about anything. I'm just trying to earn their trust is what I'm trying to say, because I know how hard it is. And I was lucky, Eva. I was very lucky 40 some years ago that I met a man that became my mentor, and almost even my mom used to say it. And I think it probably pissed my dad off that he was like my dad, because I spent more time at his house than I did at my own house. Mm-hmm. And why? Because he gave me attention. He would talk to me about a football game after I played, because he would go to the game, and it wasn't my dad's fault. He had to work at night, but we never talked about stuff like that, and we never talked about what's going on at school or girlfriends, and you need that as a young man. You need men that you can talk to about that, or you're going through a tough breakup in a relationship, which we all will, right? We're all going to. And instead of falling back on the porn or the inappropriate behavior or the drinking or the drugs, maybe if you had somebody you could talk to. In the old days, it was your uncle or maybe an older brother or your dad that you can go talk to. But today we don't have that. Things are so fast, nobody has time to talk. And so you say, well, we need to communicate. Well, where are we going to learn to communicate, Eva?
Not at school. It's there is a fine art. It's like, if you want to do something, I was very shy to speak, because English, French, it was, it's my third and fourth language. Sure. So what I did everything in my power after I finished school, and I had to do a presentation, and I was like, what I'm going to do now. So what I did, I signed up to Toastmasters International. Oh, yeah. It's an amazing.
No, I did Toastmasters for a number of years. Yes.
And after 3 months, I did my first presentation. Wow. like 2-hour presentation. I sucked at it, but I did it. Wow. I said I'm going to do it. So everything I'm challenged by, or I have a fear. It's not a fear, it's a challenge. It's like it's an obstacle. I'm going to do it. I'm always pushing to see how far can I go. I make a fool of myself. It's okay. But if I if I don't have anything to say, I won't say it. If I know about the subject, I will say something. But otherwise, so.
It's a tough time. I think we're truly in a transitional time. I think you're exactly right. What you just said a couple minutes ago, that if we don't figure out this mess with the young men, especially the young men, and it's affecting the young women. If we don't figure this thing out here in the next few years, even, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess. And I feel that's why I'm, I have a new grandson, and I'm going to be, and I communicate pretty well with my grandkid, the men. And I, because I look at them and I know that their dads are trying, but they're struggling too. Because the older son his dad wasn't around either. So I'm trying to do the best I can but I took the time to learn this stuff. My issue with men is that most of them aren't taking the time to pick up a book and read about how to be a man, or find that mentor and say, hey, look, I need some help, because we need help, and women have a tendency to at least seek out help more so than men do. But these young guys, they don't have time. We got to help them. And because if we don't help them, Eva, the 15, 16, and 17-year-old kids right now, boy, it could be I think you nailed it. It could be a real mess here.
Look at how many kids are in prison, how many kids are overdosing, and special now.
Horrible.
Drinking. It's like
binge drinking.
It's incredible. And I don't know. And they daring each other and end up in the hospital. So there must be a logic. And it's not even how to be a man, but how to be you, authentic you as a person that brings out the best in you. And you give the best to the people and give the best to yourself, first of all.
Okay, a client and I were talking this morning. He came to me and he goes, Arnie, I was listening to a seminar yesterday, and a word came to my head, and he goes, I thought of you because you're always preaching this. It starts with an A. I'm thinking, I couldn't do it. He goes, alignment. I go, yes. And I go, you're right. Because in my world, Eva, it's God, then Arnie, then my wife, then my kids, and then my business. And when we're out of alignment in our lives, we hurt. And part of that alignment is that, and I was telling this young man today, I said, look, I've got to get you to the point where you feel loved. So you're not having to chase love from a girl, because that's going to make you do stupid things. Because if we feel confident in ourselves and we love ourselves, right, then we're less apt to go out and do dumb things to get love. Because that generally doesn't work, does it?
You just put the dot on the I. Love. People, they don't understand the notion of love, or they don't know how to accept love. And that's another subject, because we can go on and on.
Oh, no, we could talk about this for hours. You know that.
I know that.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. And you and I talked about this before, that, and it sounds a little cliche, but love does conquer all. And it starts with ourselves right here, inside of us. If we have, as Tony Robbins would say, all that we need is inside of right here. It's all here. But how many believe that, Eva?
I watched a movie. It's an old movie. It was with Shirley MacLaine. I can't remember the name of the movie. But there was a line which stuck in my head, and actually I'm using it. Without love, life has no purpose.
It's true.
I mean, I was like,
but it's true. If we don't love ourselves, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And especially if you don't have a spiritual base, because I know that God loves me, and it's up to me to love me, because he already does. And then with the number one fear in the world that I'm never going to be loved. The number one fear in the world is I'm not going to. How sad is that, Eva? I'm not going to be loved.
But it starts with you. If you don't love yourself,
That's right.
you are not going to see that somebody loves you, or you are not going to be able to give love.
Right. You can't give what you don't have. And
No.
it's very tough to receive what you don't have inside.
Yes, that's true.
And it took me a long time to understand that.
Mhm.
And I know you do. I try to really, once I get that trust and can get inside of somebody, whether I'm coaching them in weight loss or fitness or walking the Grand Canyon, it comes down to loving ourselves and kind of pushing through these insecurities that we all have about ourselves. And problem is right now, I think you nailed it with the whole porn thing. A lot of that is about insecurity and not being loved and feeling feeling power over a computer screen, which is ridiculous. Right? I know. I hear you, kiddo. Eva, why don't you take the last minute or so, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, websites, phone number, best way to get a hold of Eva, and if they have some questions about relationships and all the good things that you do and provide for people.
It's going to change a bit about the relationshipmaker.com. I'm working, the website is still on, but I'm rephrasing some of the things, and I'm getting away from some things. Mm-hmm. But that's the best place. I have a podcast. It's also evatherelationshipmaker.com. I have on LinkedIn, Eva Hompoth. Facebook, I have Eva the Relationship Maker, same thing on Instagram. So any place, just DM me, send me a message, and I answer. I always.
And you'll be able to take this show and share it with your network as well, Eva.
Thank you.
And they can learn more about you as well. And I'm blessed to learn to meet you, and hopefully we will continue the conversation, you and I. But you're a wonderful spirit, and thank you so much for coming on. I'm honored to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me, and it was my pleasure to meet you and have a chat.
And enjoy the rest of your evening, okay?
You too.
Okay,
bye-bye.